So I've been working on and off on this Transcendent 2000 now for the last 2 weeks, and it sort of works. I'll show you why it doesn't work in a sec, but yeah, it was played by some cats and they were a bit heavy-handed with it and stuff like that. But yeah, it's never really worked properly, and I've been trying to figure out what the problem is. Already I've replaced a few things here, there and everywhere. I've done a couple of things that don't look quite right. The problem that I'm having, the main problem, is still there. I've cleaned all the pots. A lot of the problems have gone, however, it's got some severe tracking issues. So you can see it here in all of its glory, and yeah, it's this taken off. So I've had this for 4 years now. That's mad, and I still haven't fixed it. So I really need to get onto it, but I'll just show you the problem. So if I play with just the keyboard, doesn't do anything. You'll see that the notes are all compressed into these keys. No matter what I adjust on the trim pots, which I have even replaced the trim pot because I thought that was the problem. Yeah, it's not doing anything. There was a resistor here that wasn't the right value. I've swapped that out. I swapped the capacitors and the power supply, not for this problem. I've just done it anyway. I've checked the power supply. I've done the contact cleaner on the keyboard, and now I'm absolutely stumped as to what the problem is. I've been looking and reading through this, and I've been sort of comparing every single resistor value and capacitor value for the ones on here. Everything is right. All of the contacts are correct, but there is one thing that I have found. So basically, there's a wire wound copper resistor right here, and I thoroughly recommend you read this because it does a very interesting way of temperature compensation using this right here, which is a wire wound resistor. It's a big and chunky version, and I'm getting no reading from this. It's not being a resistor, it's being nothing. And even when it isn't plugged in, as you can see, I took it apart, I pulled it out to take a reading of the resistor. The problem's still there. The problem is this copper wire wound resistor is an 870 ohm resistor, and I can't find one anywhere. However, I found an 820 ohm resistor, so I think that's going to be close enough. It goes in series with this other resistor, which I might need to bump up a little bit, but I'm just going to replace this with a slightly lower resistor value, see what happens. Anyway, I'll see you when this resistor turns up. So next step on the saga of the transient. So here we go, this is it. Piece de resistor, you know what I'm saying. But I'm just going to put it in, see what happens. Okay, let's see if this alleviates the actual problem that we were having. Oh my god, it's sorted it, it's fixed it, it works! Yes! So here it is in all of its glory, the 1978 POWERTRAN Transcendent 2000. I'm not sure how long it wasn't functioning for, because if you're not aware, these actually came as kits. They were designed so musicians who didn't have the budget to purchase an expensive synthesizer at the time could, you know, still have a synth as long as they built it at home. It was designed by Tim Orr, who worked at EMS. It didn't go under the EMS name because, you know, imagine if somebody built it with gaffer tape. You know, there's a lot of varying quality with these things, and that's another thing to note. If you find these secondhand on eBay or something, make sure you look at images of the inside, because they haven't been built by the same people. These have all been built by hobbyists. So yeah, the varying build quality is quite large. I was quite lucky with this one, except for the fact it didn't work. And yeah, after 4 years, finally it's functioning. What spurred me on to finally get this going was I think it's a perfect interactive piece for the museum. It's going to go into the interactive zone with other synthesizers so people can tickle the ivories and twist the old knobs. I fixed this a few days ago and I excitedly started a Patreon live stream just to have a bit of a jam. Let's go and have a look at some cuts from that, shall we? So this is just like, yeah, started with the raw sort of pulse width modulation, square wave. So it's a monophonic synthesizer with a single oscillator. It's quite standard, but it's got some interesting things. But you can notice that the filter's actually quite a squelchy mother. It's got a noise sample and hold, which is making it go really funky and weird. The resonance, I think, is actually quite nice. And then you've got noise. You bring the noise into the mix and it can actually be quite overpowering. It's pretty cool. Band pass filter. I'm sending it a gate trigger at the minute. Now this is still getting the gate trigger, but it's actually got a random sample and hold on the LFO into the oscillator. The LFO can send a square wave and a triangle at the same time, which is what you're hearing right now. It's slowly going up and down. Now I've got another oscillator sending a sequence into the synth that is going through the filter, because the filter's pretty cool. Well, there we go. I played for about an hour, and the whole hour of the isolated Transcendent mix is available to download and sample and whatnot over on my Patreon. And if you want to see more live streams like that before these videos, then go and check it out over there. Anyway, let's go and have a look at this synthesizer. So all of the knobs are, well, they're knobs. Ooh. Let's start up at the top. First knob, we've got Portamento. We've got an unsprung pitch bend, which is, I guess, in a way just fine-tuned because it doesn't bounce to center, so you've got to kind of keep your eye on that. So this switch here adjusts how the trigger works on the keyboard. This is like a standard, and then NPD, which apparently stands for new pitch detection. Get the idea. And then this part is the oscillator section. If I just go over here and bypass the VCA, so the oscillator can be a square wave. We've got pulse width and pulse width modulation, which is modulated by the LFO. So if you click over to the triangle/sawtooth, you can actually modulate it between triangle and sawtooth using the same wave knobs. Triangle, ramp. And then you can modulate it again. And then the bottom section is pitch control. You've got a sample and hold input, which is a sample and hold that's been triggered by the LFO again. You get the idea, and then you can modulate it with the ADSR. There's a square wave and a triangle wave LFO knob, so you can actually kind of mix the waveforms to make a sort of waveform in between both of them. Down the oscillator we've got a noise. So this is the filter. You can modulate it with the LFO via this. And you can also trigger it via a random trigger from the sample and hold. band pass, low pass. And this is the VCF envelope level, but it's quite strange because if you watch this, it's on 0 and it seems to be backwards, so middle is nothing. And if you go up, and then if you go down to 0, I swear that's backwards. Anyway, you have an envelope here for the filter, and then you have an ADSR which is controlling the VCA and various other things. So I'm just going to turn that back on. The noise gets really quite loud and actually overpowers the oscillator, which adds some rather rhythmic function. It's pretty cool. So that is the Transcendent 2000, a budget DIY kit from the 1970s. I've read some people on the internet saying it sounds a bit naff. Well, I beg to differ. It actually sounds pretty funky. Okay, the knobs feel a little bit cheap because they are plastic 1970 potentiometers, but still, it's pretty awesome. Another thing I forgot to mention is the fact that these are actually wooden, and the more times you take them apart, the looser they get. This one's reasonably not that loose, but there are apparently some that are like a bit wibbly wobbly. If you want to play this, then the Museum of Everything Else will be opening relatively soon. It all depends on how timing works out with this lockdown and all that measures and stuff like that, but we'll have a look at that. So there will be a chance to play on the Transcendent if you live in the UK, or even if you want to travel to this weird museum of synthesizers. But if you can't find your way down here and you can't find a cheap one on the internet, then fear not. From the whole live stream and this recording that are available to download on my Patreon, so you can kind of sample the weird noises of the Transcendent. Anyway, until the next video, I've been Look Mum No Computer. If you like what you see, don't forget to subscribe and don't be scared to try it.